This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right, so one bit of news that broke on the first day of training camp was that Kevin Stefanski has announced already that he's going to be calling the plays. Now, this came earlier than I expected, but this was the result that I expected. The reason this came earlier was I thought that they would do more of a charade of this during the preseason, or that Kevin, quite frankly, he just doesn't care about communicating this information to the media and neglected to tell them until the start of the season. But he did the right thing, I think, in this situation and just got it out the way. He said he's calling the plays. Now, if you've watched me for a long period of time, especially over this off season, you would know that this is something that I have predicted was going to happen since the Browns hired Ken Dorsey, and everybody had all of these rumors about why it was that the Browns went after Ken Dorsey and all of that. So let's first start on that angle of it. Why are so many people, or why would so many people expect that Ken Dorsey would call the plays, or, think that that is what is going to happen? When I thought it was pretty obvious Kevin was still going to call these plays, even when they hired Ken Dorsey. I think this comes from a number of misunderstandings. I think the first misunderstanding that happens that pushes somebody down this line is a misunderstanding of why it was that Alex Van Pelt got fired. Alex Van Pelt didn't get fired because he was a bad coach. Alex Van Pelt didn't get fired because somebody needed to be the scapegoat. And Alex Van Pelt was not fired because somebody in ownership or from the Browns organization demanded that Kevin do so. All of those motivations for Alex Van Pelt being moved on from were false. Just false. That's not why the Browns moved on from him. The actual answer to why the Browns moved on from Alex Van Pelt is obvious. Alex Van Pelt was ultimately too similar to Kevin Stefanski for them to have a thorough enough collaborative process to build an offense around somebody whose style of play is a little bit different than what Alex Van Pelt and Kevin Stefanski are used to. You look at the quarterbacks that these guys have dealt with, they're traditional pocket passers, right? Kevin Stefanski really shined with Kirk Cousins, really shined with Baker Mayfield, really shined with Jacoby Brissett, right? Joe Flacco. These are all traditional pocket passers on one end of that spectrum, on the other, but they're all pocket passers. Deshaun Watson is decidedly a different style of quarterback than those guys. And I think the problem that the Browns kept running into was that they kept trying to create a new offense around a quarterback in which they had no experience on staff with doing that. And that became a big problem for everybody. Let's put it like this. Let's imagine that the Browns offense is a restaurant, and what that restaurant has done well for the last 10 years is make burgers, and everybody in there is experienced at making burgers and burgers alone. But after a while, the people who go to that restaurant start to want sushi. Now, you can put all those guys together and their experience in making burgers, and they can try to make some sushi and look up some stuff, but they're probably not going to be that good at it. If you want to make sushi and you're that burger restaurant, what you're going to have to do is hire somebody who knows how to make sushi. For the longest time, the Browns were trying to build an offense around Deshaun Watson, with nobody in that collaborative process who really knew how to do that. So they had to move on from Alex Van Pelt to adjust to their quarterback. And that is why Ken Dorsey is here, because Ken Dorsey has experience with quarterbacks who play very similar to Deshaun Watson. That's why Tommy Rees is here, and all the different moves that the Browns have done over the last year to change up this offense, or at least to change up who's collaborating on the offense, is so that they get some actual sushi chefs in the building to make sushi. That's what this was always about. It was about the collaboration process, not about who calls the plays. It was not about dissatisfaction from ownership about the offense. But when you think it's about those things, it becomes real easy to think, well, of course, Kevin's not going to call the offense anymore. It's going to be Ken Dorsey, because the reason Ken Dorsey is here is because they're not happy with what Kevin's done on offense. If you think that way, despite the fact that Kevin got an extension this offseason, you would be inclined to be surprised that the play calling is not in Ken Dorsey's hands. Now, what is play calling exactly? I've explained this a ton of times because I think play calling is the most misunderstood, over talked about element on a football game. We spend so much time talking about play calling. It matters so much less than the amount of time that we spend on it, right? What play calling is basically the coach has a giant sheet. On that sheet is basically the entire game plan, right? They have plays for second and short, third and short, fourth and short, whatever situation that you want to be prepared for, you have plays on there. And how those plays get on that sheet is that you collaborate with your entire offensive staff to decide what gets on and what is not on that sheet, what you practice, what you don't practice for that week. And then you call the plays in the situations that the plays are. I think a lot of people think that play calling is like Madden, or like Kevin's just sitting out there freestyling it off the top of his head, like calling out plays and shit. That's not how it works, dog. It's all on a sheet. It's all kind of predetermined. Here's the real reason a play caller would get removed. If the play call can't get in. Right? When you get situations where offenses are taking timeouts because personnel couldn't get in, or play calls couldn't get in, or the play call is consistently getting in late, or you're getting in within 10 seconds of the clock expiring and you still don't have a play call in. When it is operationally funky, yeah, play caller gets swapped out because something needs to change to get the play call in. So what we should be worried about as fans when it comes to play calling isn't necessarily the ins and outs and judging every play as it's called based on the result. It really should be like, hey, is the operation good? Like, are they getting the play call in with a decent amount of time? Does it look like everybody is struggling to figure out what they're supposed to do? Does the offense feel like they know what the play is because we're getting the play call in and we're being sound with the operation? As long as that's the case, what we're judging when we see play calls is more of the game plan than the play call itself. So I don't really like get into that, but that's what I look at when I'm like, hey, does the play caller need to be changed? Is the operational stuff. What time on the clock are we getting this ball out? How much time is Deshaun Watson getting to survey the field and make a pre-snap read? So that's my whole thing on play calling. What does it mean that Kevin Stefanski is still the play caller? Well, it means what we felt like was obvious. Kevin Stefanski is still in charge of the offense, and that's a good thing. Kevin is a really good game planner, right? When you look at guys who could have success on their opening drives, at the end of halves, and at the end of games, Kevin is at the top of those lists. He does a really good job with those game plans. Kevin is a really good game planner, and I think he's a pretty damn good play caller. So I'm fine with Kevin keeping the book. I don't think that's a bad thing. Now, does Kevin keeping the play calling responsibilities mean that the changes on the offense aren't going to be that drastic? Well, it depends on what you mean by drastic. If you expected the Cleveland Browns to run a completely different offense than what they ran in years past, yeah, you're probably going to be disappointed. It's not going to look brand spanking. It's not going to look like they fired Kevin Stefanski and hired somebody else. It's still going to look like Kevin Stefanski work here because Kevin Stefanski does work here. Like the basic, like it, think about it like this. The Baltimore Ravens fired Wink Martindale and hired Mike McDonald. And now they have a new defensive coordinator. But you know what the Ravens defense is going to look like? A 3-4. It's going to look like the Ravens defense, right? It can go from coordinator to coordinator, but the Ravens ain't changing to 4-3 because they have a new coordinator. They going to run what the Ravens defense is. The Browns offense is ultimately still going to kind of look like the Browns offense. It's going to be tailored around Deshaun Watson. And think about that term when we say tailored. It's not a new suit when you tailor something. It's just adjusting what's there to make it more tightly fit Deshaun Watson. That's what tailor means. That's tailoring the offense. It's not going to be a completely new offense. The Browns aren't going to be running, it's not going to look like a spaceship crash into the Browns offense and that's what's going on there. I feel like some people have that expectation. It's not going to be the case. And Ken Dorsey and what he likes to do is not that much different than what Kevin does. What is different with Ken is that he changes up how a play is processed by the quarterback, right? We talked about it with Deshaun Watson, with Kevin Stefanski. They had a lot of plays where the timing was based off of where you are in your drop exclusively and kind of tied to your footwork. That's not going to be the case anymore. There's going to be a lot more freedom for Deshaun Watson on when he can get rid of these balls and when he can make a read and when he can move and when he cannot. It's not going to be as tightly restricted on Watson. That doesn't mean that they're going to run different passing concepts. They're still going to run stick. They're still going to run dagger. They're still going to run the same concepts that they've had a lot of success with over the years. It just means how those plays are processed are going to be a little bit more different. For my tech people out there that are into tech, think of this change of the Browns offense less as a complete overhaul of what it's going to be and more like when Mac switched from x86 to ARM or went from Intel Max to M1 Max. Everything behind the scenes did get a pretty significant overhaul, but that's not what we saw. What we saw when they announced the M1 Mac is, hey, it's a Mac with new features. Didn't look that different from what a Mac used to be. Didn't change how you interact with your Mac. It just was a better version of your Mac. I think that's kind of the framework you should expect this change to exist in if you know what that is from the tech world. Also, I would like to stress this. This doesn't mean that Ken Dorsey is a puppet and powerless in this situation. Ken Dorsey was brought in to be a part of a collaborative process. And you can already see by the different amount of motions that the Browns have showed in mini camps, OTAs, and now training camps that Ken Dorsey is having a significant effect on this offense and has a significant amount of input on this offense. That being said, I'm excited about what Ken Dorsey's experience can mean for Deshaun Watson and this offense. Again, it's not going to look like a spaceship crashed into the Browns playbook and they're going to run, they're going to run the Mike Leach offense or something crazy like that. They're not about to make that drastic of a change on offense, but it's a change for the people who matter. It's a change for Deshaun Watson. It's a change for Amari Cooper. It's not necessarily going to be the biggest visual change in the world. And I think some people are expecting a giant visual change. And I don't think it's going to be that. I think play calling is not where Kevin has his issues as a head coach. I think sometimes Kevin's issues are that he is not the most creative offensive mind in the world. I think he does lack a little bit creativity, and that's why I think it's important that he bring in guys who have different backgrounds than him on the offensive side of the ball, like Ken Dorsey, because he needs to be exposed to these new ideas to be able to implement them. And I think you have to supplement the fact that Kevin's not the most offensively creative guy, right? He's somebody who is an excellent game planner. He's somebody who, once he understands a concept, knows how to exploit that concept to the maximum, but he's not somebody who's going to think up a million different ways to cut you. He's not Sean McVay, where Sean McVay comes out with a new glitch every year, right? That's not the case with Kevin. Kevin is somebody who you want to make sure you keep new ideas coming around him, or else he will get stale. that's why I think he gets comped to Andy Reid when it comes to Andrew Berry, because I think he even sees that, right? Like, yeah, you need to rotate in who you have offensive wise, and you need to make sure you keep new ideas around him. But if he starts to understand something, he knows how to exploit that. And I think that is similar to Andy Reid. And I think with Kevin, again, an elite game planner, just got to get new ideas around him. I think this is good, ultimately. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Somebody tell G. Bush he owes me 20 imaginary dollars, because he bet me 20 imaginary dollars that Kevin wasn't going to keep this play calling. So let G. Bush know. Maybe I got to bring G. Bush back on so I can get my 20 imaginary dollars. But y'all have a good one. Peace.